late at 6:40. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or agreed upon. In accordance with the provision of this act, the Matawan-Aberdeen Regional School District Board of Education advertised this meeting on June 5th, 2024 in the Asbury Park Press and the Star Ledger. These notices were sent to the municipal clerks of the Borough of Matawan, the Township of Aberdeen, and the Matawan-Aberdeen Public Library. These notices were also placed on the district's website. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we please call roll call?
Ms. Violence?
Here.
Ms. Martinez? Here. Mr. McGovern?
Here.
Mr. Monto?
Here.
Ms. Scott? Here. Ms. Royal? Here. Ms. Warnocky? Here. Mrs. Foley? Here. Ms. Bell?
Here. Okay. Be it resolved that a closed session be convened for the purpose of discussing privacy, personnel, and legal matters. The subject matter of these discussions will be disclosed to the public when the reason for confidentiality subsides. Although the board cannot guarantee if the length of the executive session is estimated to be 30 minutes, after which the public meeting of the board shall reconvene and proceed with business. Action will take place. Can I have a motion and a second to enter executive session?
I'll motion. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You're in executive session. Yes, we already entered back into public session while you guys were all coming on in. And so, can I have a motion and a second to accept the minutes?
I'll motion.
Second. And can I have a motion and a second to accept the correspondence to the board?
I'll motion.
Now, move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call Mr. Van Horn.
All right, thank you very much. And at this time, I'm going to welcome our 3 first Huskies of the month for Matawan-Aberdeen Middle School. So if you could, please join me in welcoming Ryan Buja, John Gordon, and Riley Hernandez. They're going to lead us in the flag salute right now, and then I'm going to talk about all the great things they're doing.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, you guys can stay up here. All right, so later on in the presentation, in a little bit, Mrs. Calandrano is going to talk about some of the new initiatives that we have going on in MAMS this year. One of them is that we are recognizing 1 student from each grade each month, and we have more than 270 students in each grade. So to be recognized this way is a big deal. And each one of the learners standing next to me have exemplified our school's core values. See, last year we entered into a partnership with Rutgers University to start a PBSIS program, Positive Behavior Supports in School program. And one of our first things was involving all stakeholders to identify what are our core values as a school? What are the most important things to us? And the core values that were voted on were what you see on the screen right now: community, accountability, respect, and empathy. And we know that all nearly 900 students that attend MAMS each day are capable of demonstrating these values, but we're looking for the 3 students each month out of that nearly 900 that are doing an absolute fantastic job day in and day out. So, if you didn't see, their names are on the sign, the digital marquee out in front of our school. All right. I am going to look at my paper because I want to do these young people justice and read you some of the things, some of the notes that their teachers, because these are coming from our staff. These recommendations are coming from our staff, all right, who are taking time out to recommend these students and to vote on these students. And first up is Ryan, who's our 6th grade Husky of the Month, all right. Some of the things that his teacher said about Ryan were, he works with all of his classmates in a way that helps to build community. He works great in pairs or groups and takes on a leadership role. He provides support and encouragement for his classmates. He advocates for himself and for his academics. He is honest and open about his understanding of the content. He can admit when he's wrong or is confused. He enters each day with a positive attitude toward learning, and he is always polite with students, teachers, and even holds the door for others, which is something that I love. So let's give Ryan a real big round of applause. Mrs. Paoli Hurd, our assistant principal here, has a nice certificate for Ryan. All right, Ryan got a gift certificate yesterday as well. And Ryan, you can go sit down, but thank you so much. We're going to call you up in a minute, though. We're going to take a picture, okay? All right. Next up is John Gordon here. John is our 7th grade Husky of the month. His teachers say that he is a focused student who is behaved and attentive at all times during class time and in study hall. He is engaged. He focuses on class. He follows all the classroom rules and procedures. He always shows respect for his teachers, his classmates, and school property. His teachers describe him as a, quote, model student. And when another student was confused on an assignment, the teacher wrote about an example where John volunteered and helped his classmate, which I thought was awesome. So let's give John a big round of applause for being our 7th grade Husky of the month. And lastly is Riley Liano. She is our 8th grade Husky of the month. She is student council president this year. She brought all members of council together and has been a leader. She shows responsibility and organization for her academics and at student council. She shows respect to all of her peers, faculty, and herself. She is considerate, thoughtful, polite, and caring. She leads by example. She helped a classmate and underclassman, or she will help a classmate, underclassman, especially at student council, or anyone in the hallway. She is a conscientious student who's concerned about her grades and is willing to put in the work to be a scholar, which is definitely going to serve you well for the rest of your life, actually. But let's give Riley a big round of applause. And somebody take a picture. I told them we're going to take a picture up here. All right. The Huskies of the month, you want to come on up here? We're going to get a nice picture in front of the screen with your names. All right. Thank you so much. Like we said, that's a great honor for, there's more than 270 students in each grade. So to be identified like that was really something special. All right. I have a quick presentation. Mrs. Palandrano, our assistant principal, and Mrs. Paoni Hurd, our assistant principal, are going to help me out. The theme this year at MAMS is raising the bar. All right, that's been the theme since the very first day of school, and even the 2 in-service days before school. We've talked a lot as a staff. We've talked a lot in our expectation meetings that we hold with all of the students. We do that each quarter. We talked about the importance of having high expectations. High expectations are important, obviously, for academic success, but we're also worried about students, or focused on our students' personal growth as young people, and the long-term impact that having high expectations for themselves, especially, is going to serve them well in high school, beyond high school, and in the workforce. Here at MAMS, what we're focusing on this year is high expectations first and foremost for academic achievement. All right? We know how great our staff is, how talented our staff is. We know how capable our young people are, and we want to see them demonstrate that they can reach those capabilities that we know they are able to. We fully believe, as a staff and as an administrative team, that students are going to reach to wherever we set the bar. So if we have low or medium expectations for students, they're going to come up to where we set the bar there. But if we have very, very high expectations for learning, if we have high expectations for attendance, if we have high expectations for behavior and discipline expectations, if we have high expectations for social emotional stuff, we know that our students can get there, and that's really going to be the focus for this year. but we don't have unrealistic expectations. We know that young people, or anybody, in order to reach those expectations that we have, that they need supports. And so what are we doing as a staff to support our students? First and foremost, we're examining our own instructional practices. We're taking a very careful look at what we're doing as a staff each day in the 68-minute block. Right? We are improving our practices. We just had a tremendous faculty meeting yesterday where all of our teachers and certificated staff were in the cafeteria, meeting together as departments to talk about ways to literally improve their practices, to brainstorm new ideas, to dialogue with each other, with the administrators. We are really focused on, as a staff, keeping a growth mindset. Even though we do a good job already, how can we stand to improve? We're always trying to get a little bit better each day. We're setting high standards for ourselves as an administrative team. We have set very challenging, but we think realistic targets for student attendance, for student discipline, and for academics. We know that our students can learn at a higher rate than they are currently. We are creating new programs, and Mrs. Paoli is going to touch on this a little bit, of using student feedback to drive decision-making, and we are celebrating effort. We saw that before with our Huskies of the Month. We also have some other examples where we're going to be recognizing students not just for getting an A or getting a perfect score on NJSLA, but for growth. I've always been an advocate for that, for recognizing students who have grown a great amount. So that's really, in a nutshell, that is our focus for MAMS for this year. I'm going to turn things over right now to Mrs. Palandrano, and she's going to talk about some new initiatives and highlights in our school.
So, round of applause. So at MAMS this year, we're extremely excited and proud to be able to, do these new initiatives and these highlights that are things that, some things that you'll see on the screen are things that we're doing for the first time here at MAMS. Like Mr. Van Horn said before, we're going to touch on that student voice piece. So we're really looking for the feedback from the students to give us kind of that outlook of what the rest of the year will look like. Okay. So what's new at MAMS this year? So Husky of the Month, Mr. Van Horn went over that before. Each month we're going to pick 3 students from each grade level who exemplify those core values that Mr. Van Horn had put up before. The students seem to be very excited about it. We put it on the newsletter. As you saw, it was on the marquee out front. And we're always looking for ways to improve, what we can provide to the students as far as celebrating how great they're doing this school year. The next one is MARSD Spirit Wear on Wednesdays. So we're encouraging students to wear Madawan gear on Wednesdays. This has been a great hit. I'm very proud to say that our students they're receiving tickets in their advisory period if they're wearing Madawan gear. They're dropping it into a bucket or a bin, and then we're pulling those names. So we're going to start that this week. We'll be pulling the names, and then students will win various prizes, things like vouchers for snacks or gift cards and things like that. Another great new thing that we're doing this year at MAMS is the quiet lunch. So this is something that students at the start of the school year, they were able to opt out of the cafeteria and they're able to enjoy their lunch in our media center. We have a staff member who oversees that for each grade level, and our students have the opportunity. It's really great to see. The students are reading, they're working on maybe activities or projects that they need to catch up on. They're sitting sometimes with their friends, but they're really doing a nice job in there. We actually have, for 6th grade, I believe, we're still at the point of rotating because we have so many students who are interested in doing it. Digital Club Rush, this is something new to MAMS this year. So we used an online platform to be able to deliver the options for the clubs and extracurriculars that we have here at MAMS. The students were able to review that during advisory, and then they were able to actually sign right up through that online platform if they wanted to. The next one, staff highlights. I don't know when you walked in if anybody saw that bulletin board. It's right outside of the main office. That is highlighting some staff members, so we're switching those out monthly. It's giving fun facts about our staff members, and it's really giving the staff and the students and our community the opportunity to learn a little bit more about the staff in the building. Mr. Van Harm also has been putting it in his newsletters, so that will rotate monthly as well. It's funny, I actually, at the end of the day today, a staff member was outside there looking at it, and she was kind of giggling a little bit, and she was reading it, and she was saying, it's awesome to be able to learn a little bit about, each other a little bit more than I would have thought. The next one's Pick a Song Fridays, so we, I don't know if you guys are aware, we've been welcoming the students in with music every morning. And every morning we try to change it up. We're trying to do different genres. We're trying to do, different types of songs as best we can. But, we thought about it in the beginning of the school year. We said, it would be a great opportunity for the students to get a little bit more involved with that. So we're starting in advisory where they will be able to basically vote on a song earlier in the week so that on Friday they can listen and hear if their song was chosen on Fridays. Homework help, that's starting up this upcoming week. We're going to have Matawan staff, middle school, they'll be able to assist students on Mondays and Thursdays. Well, the students will be able to stay after school and they can help them with projects or any homework or any assignments that either they missed or they need help catching up on. So that's another exciting piece that we are implementing for this school year. Pick your seat for 7th grade. So for the cafeteria, we are, in 8th grade has always been able to pick their seat for the cafeteria. This is the first year that we opened it up to 7th grade as well. We really wanted to give them the independence and being able to socialize, respectfully as much as possible. And that has been the feedback we've received from the students is that they really enjoy being able to sit with their friends in 7th grade. Assemblies. So we are looking to increase the amount of assemblies that we're doing throughout MAMS this year. We've really partnered closely with our school counselors and leaned on them as far as what are the students looking for, what are the needs of the building, and how can we really target each grade level and what those needs are. So throughout the school year, you'll be hearing more about the different assemblies that we will be bringing into MAMS. Lastly, extracurriculars. We're proud to say that we have over 25 clubs and activities that happen after school. Each year, the amount of clubs has been growing, and our students are really excited to get involved. They stay after, they do what they need to do, and our advisors are very excited about it as well. So again, that's just a snapshot of a couple of the things that we're highlighting here at MAMS for the 24-25 school year. Now I'm going to pass it over. This is just a picture of the staff highlight that we have. Again, it's right outside of the main office, so if you're going that way on the way out, you'll be able to see it. This is the Week of Respect just happened, so this is something that our counselors put together. It's a bulletin board right actually on the opposite side of this wall here. And it is, how can you make a husky smile today? So all of our students during advisory wrote sayings, so you can see on there, you're welcomed, we're happy you're here, all, nice quotes that they put on those rays of the sunshine. Okay, now I'm going to switch it over to Mrs. Paoli Kerr.
So I'm going to take this time to talk a little bit about student voice and what we're doing to implement that into our initiatives as we move forward this year. So last week we had students complete a survey. It was 10 questions long, really just to give them the opportunity to self-reflect on their own instructional practices, learning styles, and different ways that they feel they can give us feedback to better tailor what we're doing in the building to fit their needs. We are so excited to say that 75% of the students gave their feedback. It was voluntary. So you'll see as we go through and look at a few snapshots that I wanted to highlight, 615 students voluntarily completed the survey, gave their feedback, and were really able to give us what they want to see moving forward. So we're going to look a little bit at what that looks like. We had questions that varied a little bit, like I had mentioned, instructional practices, learning styles, subjects. So as you can see here, we had the most challenging subjects as per student opinion are math and language arts. So that's good information for us to know where they feel they are being challenged and how we can better support that, what that would look like moving forward for instructional practices in those departments, etc. In preferred instructional practices, we've really looked at how they feel they learn best and how they're able to really understand, retain, and then show back mastery of the information and material. So we have independent work up there, partner work, and then working in a small group setting. So over 50% of the participants who responded feel that either that partner work, working with a peer, or working in that small group setting is really beneficial to how they're able to understand and work through the content and instruction on their end. We looked at learning styles, so there are several different learning styles that you can have. One being visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and then reading and writing. So kinesthetic and visual were the highest rated ones for students. That's really looking at visual, of course seeing it, but then also the opportunity to do it hands-on and really get that full experience. We asked students about their current workload and how they felt that looked for them. So nearly 50% of students felt it was easy or there was a minimal workload. So that's great for us to take as feedback for administrators and with our teachers and really look at how we can figure out a way for students to really feel challenged, in regards to what they had shared back earlier in the feedback with their learning styles and in their best instructional practices. Extracurriculars, which we touched a little bit on, over 75% of the students that participated in the survey are involved in some way in the school, which is tremendous. So you'll see that there are even students that are a part of 4 or more clubs or organizations, but that involvement is great, and we want to continue to see how we can support students and increase that. We did have a narrative section. This was open-ended, so we had students really have the opportunity to give detailed, explicit, specific feedback answering these 2 questions. What is your favorite thing about MAMS? Which varied. We saw responses such as the staff members and their, how happy they are to see us in the morning, to listening to music on the way in. That was really great and eye-opening for us to see, because we can take that and kind of continue to build on what we feel the positive feedback was for that. And then the last one was, what is one thing you would change about MAMS if you could? So that was also really important for us, because we take those responses, those open-ended, and we're now charting to see how we can take that feedback and tailor maybe some things that they'd like to see change to benefit all students in the school. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon, for hosting this evening, and the admin team highlighting our student staff programs. And we learned, so much more about the school community here at MAMS, and what I absolutely love is the focus and emphasis on student voice. Because we always do need to hear from our students. They are really honest, so they will tell us the good, the bad, the ugly. So we need to be able to take that in and receive it. And I love that you guys are open to that feedback from our students. Thank you so much. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Liebman to present our district assessment data.
Thank you. Good evening. Just to remind the board that this is part 2 of district assessment presentation. Part 1 was back in July, where we went over the data from the New Jersey GPA, the 11th grade assessment, and the WEDA assessment. So this evening, part 2, we're going to cover NJ, SLA, and we're going to cover BLM. Again, as a refresher for the board, the New Jersey statewide assessment program is what it covers. So students take the English language arts exam, the mathematics assessment for grades 3 through 9. Students took the science assessment in grades 5, 8, and 11. The purpose of the assessment is to demonstrate readiness for the next grade level, and then to judge whether they're on track for college and career readiness. Parents do receive the score reports, so they receive hard copies for kids sent home, email sent home, and then they have access to the Genesis parent portal to see scores. This presentation will be uploaded to the new district website. When the community parents go to this particular slide, there is a link at the bottom that if parents want to read more about score interpretations, we put that resource there for parents as well. So scoring performance levels, scored 1 through 5. 1 is low, 5 is high. The goal would be having students achieve 4 or 5. 4 is meeting grade level expectations, and 5 is exceeding. This is here just again to give some context to the board and for parents. This is the individual student report that gets sent home. It's already been sent home for this particular assessment. This is everything that a parent would need to know in terms of how to interpret scores. There's a lot of great information. It's a one-pager front and back. So I would highly encourage parents to do 2 things. 1, to take a look at it and read through it. And 2, create a file for their child. That way you can keep track from grades 3 all the way up through high school. And this really breaks down in pictures and in colors the interpretation of the scores. It's very, very useful document. Okay, so first, English language arts. So what does it assess? So it assesses reading and writing. It's broken down into 5 components. So reading informational texts, reading fictional texts, reading vocabulary, writing conventions, which is grammar, and then writing expressions, which is composition. Okay, the scores. So on this particular slide, we're looking at 2 sets of scores. We're looking at the district scores, which would be the column that would come first, and then we're looking at state scores. This is important. So we want to compare our district to New Jersey peers. 1, because New Jersey sets the standards for which we teach and which students learn. And then we also, we're part of the state of New Jersey, so when we look at our particular group of students and we compare them as a whole, we can identify where they particularly land. So again, just a refresher in terms of how to look at this particular slide. Level 1 is on the left, that's the lower side. Level 5 is to the right. You would want to see lower scores on the left and then progress to higher scores on the right. But when you're comparing district to state, you typically on the left would be even lower than the state. For example, if we look at level 1, 3rd grade, that's saying that 11% of our 3rd graders scored at a level 1 compared to 20% of their peers across the state of New Jersey. So we're lower than the state peers, that's appropriate. If you go all the way to the right and look at level 5, still 3rd grade, top row, our students, 8% of our students are at level 5 compared to 6% of students at level 5 across the state of New Jersey. So our numbers are higher on the right side, also appropriate. Now this particular slide, a lot of data. Board, you have this, parents will have an opportunity to look at this as well. So we're looking at 3 years worth of data, starting with the 21-22 school year, moving up until last spring. This is just English language arts. You'll have a chance to look at math as well. The same philosophy works here as well. You want to see lower scores on the left, progressing to higher scores on the right. There's 2 ways to interpret this data. You could, if we did 3rd grade again, you could look from left to right horizontally. So if you do that for 3rd grade, moving from left to right, keep in mind that you are seeing the same grade, same curriculum, different years, different students. Okay, so that's going to be important. Same grade, same curriculum, different years, different students. You could also look at this diagonally, upper left to bottom right. So if we start with 3rd grade again, we go to 3rd grade level 1, 21-22, so you wrap your eyes there to 8%. If you move diagonally down to the right, you're now looking at different years, different grades, same students. So now you're looking at a cohort of students working together. So in this case, 3rd grade in 21-22, they were at 8% of our students were level 1. Then it went to 7% in 4th grade, then in 5th grade, 8%. So that's telling us a few things. It's telling us that our numbers are still lower than the state average, and that our 3rd graders who did score level 1, the scores are basically flat. So it means that the students who were scoring level 1 stayed there. We didn't increase many, but we also didn't lose many. If we take that same philosophy, and we move from 3rd grade level 1 to 3rd grade level 5, and do the same thing. So if you find 3rd grade, level 5, 21-22, it's 17% in the top row. Go diagonally down. 17 in 3rd grade, 17% for level 5, 21% in 4th grade, 17% in 5th grade. Again, basically, there's a standard deviation of 3, which means that you typically go up or down 3% in a given year. So our scores are flat. which means that the students who have been achieving a level 5 in grades 3 and 4 continue to achieve a level 5 in 5th grade. Just to break out the data a little bit more, because we do have 3 elementary schools that have 3rd grade students who take the assessment, so you can look at Cliffwood, Ravine Drive, and Strathmore. Again, the same approach works where you want to see lower on the left, higher on the right. If we go all the way to the right, in this particular one, we're actually combining students who scored a 4 to 5, and those are our achievement levels. So if you take a look, last column on the right, Cliffwood, 45% of our students achieved a 4 or 5, 46 at Ravine Drive, and 54 at Strathmore. So if you put on the board for a little while, or if you look at previous presentations, there used to be a bigger gap between our buildings. The numbers now are becoming much, much more aligned, much more closer. That's good, right? Hopefully we want to see them to be exactly the same, but we're pretty close at all 3 buildings, and the scores have improved. That's a good sign. When you look at BOE Road, you're looking at grades 4 and 5, remember all of our students have now come together. So 65% of our students in grade 4 and 66% of our students in grade 5 have achieved a score of 4 or 5. So again, that's good. We're showing growth and our scores are getting higher. That's great. But not perfect. So when we look at the gap of 3rd grade compared to 4th and 5th, it's still pretty significant. There's a 20 percentage point difference. So we're going to talk more about this in a little while, but we're going to really start to focus more on 3rd grade literacy and looking at where that particular lands in terms of 3rd graders, not taking just this assessment, but are also local assessments as well. So now moving on to math. Math scores are based on major content area, which is your addition, subtraction, multiplying, and dividing. There's supporting content area, there's solving real world problems, there's analyzing problems, there's explaining how, there's word problems. Those are all assessed starting in grade 3. Interpreted the data the same way, so this slide is showing us, again, our district compared to the state, lower on the left, higher on the right. Different than language arts in terms of you saw a greater trajectory in language arts where we saw growth, math not as much. If we go down to Algebra 1, for example, so you're almost at the bottom, Algebra 1, take a look, our students, 18% of our students scored a level 1 compared to their peers, which was 17. So we don't want to be higher than our state peers, but however we are. And if we follow from left to right on Algebra 1, you're going to see that pattern is going to continue straight across, where our New Jersey peers have scored higher than our district students. We're going to talk more about that as well. Again, same thing, same philosophy for mathematics, but instead of looking at 3rd grade, we'll mix it up a little bit and let's go to 5th grade. We can go left to right to look at curriculum and different students, but we want to look at the cohort of students who are traveling together. So 5th grade, level 1 in 21-22, 7% of our students go to level 1. When they went to 6th grade, it was 12%, but then it dropped back down to 7% in 7th grade. Let's take that same idea and move from left to right. So start with 5th grade, move yourself all the way over to level 5. So 7% of our students scored a level 5 in 5th grade. Then they moved to 5%, and then moved to 3%. So we're starting to see that we have students who are achieving in the high range, but clearly not enough. So we're going to address that. We'll talk more about some action plans in a little while. Again, we have an opportunity to take a closer look at where students scored for our individual buildings. Same approach. However, the numbers are much, much lower on the left side, which is what we need to work on in our 3 elementary buildings. The scores are better when they get to Lloyd Road, but still, in terms of matching up to language arts, not meeting the same benchmarks. So science. So our students do not take the science assessment in every grade. It starts in 5th grade, and it goes to 8th grade, then again into 11th grade. So our science assessment measures mostly content, so earth and space, life science, physical sciences, some investigating practices, sense-making practices, critiquing practices. It's important to know that the science assessment, especially early on, is not always content heavy, but it's literacy heavy. So if you're a good reader, often you can score better on the science assessment, even if you don't have the content knowledge early on. That does start to change when you get to upper grades. Okay, so you can see the breakdown between the 3 grade levels and the 3 buildings. So Lloyd Road, you can see again going from left to right where students score their proficiency levels. There's a significant drop when we get to 8th grade, we'll address that. And then the scores increase again when we get to 11th grade. Still not where it should be, however, we can address the 8th grade test in a little while. The second assessment we're going to report out tonight is the DLM. So DLM is a dynamic learning map where we assess English language arts, mathematics, and science. This is for students who have a significant cognitive disability. So if the student has an IEP, they may be eligible to take the DLM. Much smaller subgroup of students. So when you take a look at the number of students who took the English language arts assessment in the spring, it was 29 students. 11 were emerging, 9 were approaching the target, and 9 students met the target in ELN. In math, 29 students again, 15 were emerging, 6 were approaching, and 8 met their target. 9 students took the science assessment, where it's actually pretty even, so 4 students were emerging, 4 were approaching, and 1 met target. Okay, so the question is, so what are we doing with all the data, especially the data points where we're not meeting our expectations? So we had talked about this in the summertime, and we're going to mention this several different times. So in the district strategic plan, the first part of the strategic plan talks about student success. There are 6 goals in our strategic plan for student success. When we go through some of the action plans in just a moment, you'll see a number in parentheses. That number corresponds to our strategic plan. Okay, so action items and strategic plan goals. The first is targeted instruction. That's an immediate need. You can see the strategic plan goals. So targeted instruction meaning that if we've identified a student who has scored a level 1, a 2, or a 3 on one of those assessments, that we know if we can identify the specific standard that they fell short on, that we can remediate those standards. Small skill groups. So we can go from an individual student who needs remediation to students who have that same deficit in common. We can group them together and we can remediate that way. Vertical articulation and training, which means that we're offering professional development to our teaching staff. We just did this on Monday, where teachers who teach a common grade or common content area, they come together, we can look at the assessment results, and we can identify not only the students who are in need, but where are we focusing on a particular curriculum area or resource or program to address those needs. So we've already been doing that. We did that again on Monday in our professional development day for the district. It's also happening in department meetings and faculty meetings after school. Job embedded PD, which means that we bring someone in to work with our teachers while they're teaching during the school day. So we can have a professional from one of our curriculum resources. They would come in, they would do a model lesson, the teachers would watch, the teachers have a chance to teach, and then the professional would watch them and then give them feedback. And then benchmark assessments to measure growth. So in district, we do assessments. We do them throughout the year where teachers can take a look at assessment results to see if there's growth, if there's not growth, they know where to remediate. Those assessments, the house assessments, standard-based, which aligns to the NJSLA, which is also standard-based. They matter those two together so we can really identify where students are struggling. So some additional action items. When I had presented last October, I talked about bringing Foundations, which is a teachers-based phonics-based program, back into the district. Last year, I talked about doing it for grades K and 1. We actually have expanded that to include 2nd grade. So teaching staff in grades K, 1, and 2, they have the materials, they have the resources. Training actually began last spring, so teachers were trained in May and June. They had the materials, they opened up school, and they were ready to hit the ground running with Foundations, where we're now going to see over 3 grades building progress of phonics-based instruction, which should help our 3rd grade literacy skills as well. We're going to continue to invest in our pre-K program because we know the sooner we have students in our district, the sooner we can address their needs. So when they spend 14 or 15 years in the district, if they're 3-year-old or 4-year-old, we have that much opportunity to help advance them by the time they graduate, because ultimately the goal is graduation. We've expanded the Tools of the Mind curriculum. So Tools of the Mind is the curriculum that we use in our pre-K classroom. We're currently piloting Tools of the Mind at Ravine Drive. Next month, when we're at Ravine Drive, Dr. Cronin will be presenting to the board. He's going to speak a lot more about Tools of the Mind, how that's being utilized in the K classrooms. Developing guiding instructional statements for student success. This is something that, as a team, we've been working on with our building principals. We're out more about this in November when we give the board updates on our strategic plan. We're going to share some of the work that we've been doing with our principals to specifically look at our strategic plan and how we're breaking down what we believe as a community will help drive success for students. So we've done a lot of work with that. We're going to share that with the board in November as well. When I had presented to the board in July, I mentioned that when we regroup, we're going to give an update on how we're providing interventions. And if you just for a moment kind of re-visualize from the opening slides I had, it was the triangle, green on the bottom, then yellow, then red. It was tiered, tier 1 at the bottom, tier 2 in the middle, tier 2 at the top. So this is what we're talking about. So intervention blocks, so in September and through up to mid-October, so right around now, this is when teachers are giving students their screeners, the diagnostics, they're looking at testing this, they're gathering all the information. And then the second bullet, so the first week of October, and then this week and throughout the rest of the month, analyze the results, so principals work with teachers to form the subgroups to help identify students who may be in tiers 2 and 3. So that's currently happening. From October to December, the first round of tiered interventions began. So in the next couple of weeks, teachers will have an opportunity to work with the students based on the data that they pulled from not just the assessment data that you saw, but the internal data that they're working with their students as well. Targeted intervention programs will be happening. So we're in Gillingham, V&V, Wilson, so you heard a little bit more about Wilson earlier this evening. So those targeted programs are happening based on the data that we have. Small group tutorial will be happening during the day. So in K to 5, there are dedicated intervention blocks within the day where teachers can pull those small groups and they can work on those tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. That's K to 5. In grades 4 through 8, there is an after-school tutorial. So you heard it in Mr. Van Horden's presentation earlier, and Dr. Bombardier, I'm sure will mention when we get to his building, there's some after-school programs that are being offered for 5. And then English and math tutorial / mentor programs. So at the high school, and this is something new that Mr. Wells is introducing at the high school, so grades 9 through 12, there will be a program to help students there as well. And it's combined where if you need tutorial, it's there. If you need mentorship, it's there. And if, often we find that students need a little bit of both, and so they'll have that opportunity. So additional supports. So remember that triangle with 3 colors. One side is really academic supports, then there's also behavior support, all works in that tiered intervention model. So the Effective School Solutions, ESS, that's here at the middle school and at the high school. So some data for you, 66% of the students who were involved in that particular program are improving or retaining good attendance. 66% are maintaining or improving their GPA, and 88 of those students are improving or maintaining their discipline. That's all through that counseling program. We continue to offer YMCA counseling in the district, sheltered English instruction, that's for our multi-language learners, again, additional academic supports for students. Title I support, so Title I support is at Cliffwood, so by the time the board we travel over to Cliffwood, you'll hear more about that from Ms. Charles, but Title I school where there's additional resources and programs that are available for students, specifically with intervention. And then of course, Title I ESL family nights that we will have, there's 3 that we plan throughout the district this school year. Right. So we saw some data, we had some intervention updates. Ultimately, what do we do? What can we do as a community to help students succeed? Not just on test scores, that's a snapshot of what students are being assessed at any given moment, but in terms of how do we move students from pre-K through 12 and ultimately get them college, career, technical ready, how do we get them life ready? These are some things that we need to do. The first one, we have to improve our attendance rates. And so we need a partnership. And that partnership has to be not just with administrators, teachers, the board, parents. It's extremely important that everybody comes to the table understanding that Kids have to come to school in order to learn and in order to achieve. We're going to be talking more with the board about plans that we have in place for chronic absenteeism as the year goes on. Most likely in December, you're going to hear more about that. But it's at the top of the list for a reason. Maximize instructional time. So whether it's here at the middle school in a 68-minute block or at the high school for a 44-minute period, that the expectation is that we have 180 days with our that we need to maximize every moment that we have with them. Small group instruction, which it looks different in preschool and it looks different in middle school and it looks different in third grade, but the research shows us that when you have an opportunity as a teacher to connect with students one-to-one, in small groups of 2 or 3, to remediate a skill, which means that you talk to the group and you found that a couple of students are struggling, you can pull 2 students together to go over that skill again, to give them a little bit more attention. It goes a long way. That can be done in the small group instruction. We shared this with the board probably in June when we talked about curriculum writing. So the state of New Jersey has issued additional standards, new standards in ELA and math. Really what they did is that they shifted standards between grade levels. That's going to be important. One, because it affects our curriculum and when we address certain standards. The other thing to keep in mind, remember those slides where I showed you 3 years worth of data? It's going to be difficult next year because the test is going to be a little bit different because we've shifted some standards. And then this might be my favorite. Again, you know that I'm a former English teacher, but it's extremely important. Do you want to know how to improve test scores? Sure. But how do we improve student achievement? Students should be reading every day. And parents that are out there, we need parent partnership with this. 15 minutes makes a big, big difference. So it doesn't have to be Shakespeare that we're reading. It can be a graphic novel. It can be an article. It can be something from an online blog. There are a lot of opportunities to engage in reading, but it's extremely important. And if it's our younger learners, where our parents are reading to them or with them, absolutely. And as our students progress in the grade levels, don't give up that reading time at home. It's extremely important. So I know I have the support of the board. I'm preaching to the choir, but it's extremely important to mention again that for student achievement, students should be reading 15 minutes every day. Thank you.
If you don't mind, if I could just ask you a couple of questions. So thank you, first of all, for presenting that. That was very helpful. Specifically, 2 areas that I have questions on are the math and the science piece. So the science piece, those numbers were very surprising to me. I think what you said helped explain it a little bit to me. Because my initial reaction is my own child, who was just in the 8th grade last year, seeing his grades in school, excellent. Seeing his grades on that test, I was like, oh my God. And then I looked at the district average, and I was like, oh my God, what's going on with science? So to me, I started to question, is the curriculum not syncing with, the standards that we're testing against, and so therefore it's just not coming through. Like there's clearly a disconnect because everyone I've talked to with kids in the same grade seem to have had the same issue, great in school, but then come to the test is very different. So I'm trying to understand what happens there. So is it a curriculum specific thing, or is it what you had mentioned, which is the test is more literacy heavy and we're teaching content in school? And I guess if that's the case, then how do we merge them together? Is there something different we should be doing with science then? Because we're never going to, if we keep doing what we're doing, we're never going to meet the standards.
I do. So it's actually a combination of several things. So I'll get into each of those components. So for many years, there had been an 8th grade science assessment. And for a long time, the state of New Jersey struggled to even get to a point where those scores counted. Because New Jersey was struggling with how to create an assessment where the questions are fair enough to every district to match what the schools are teaching. Which meant that there really wasn't a set of science standards pushed out by the state of New Jersey. That had been fixed several years ago. So that was the first issue.
Okay.
And for a long time, not currently, but for a long time, the science assessment wasn't taken seriously because everybody knew the scores didn't count. They count now, but for a long time, that was the case. because of that, a lot of curriculums had not been updated. So we are in need of updating science curriculum in the district. We're in the middle school, so it's appropriate to talk about that. That 8th grade school happened to be the lowest of the 3 grades assessed. So we have purchased, and are starting this year, a new set of curriculum materials that we're rolling out. It's going to take several years to roll this out. So there's a science curriculum called Open Sci-Ed. So we're Open, S-I-E-D, Open Sci-Ed. It's a free curriculum that's available. It's available to anybody, but it's being promoted in the state of New Jersey as a more investigatory type of science curriculum where you're not just opening up a science textbook, but you're actually opening up a box of materials and you're doing science rather than just hearing about and reading about science. So we are realigning our curriculum guides to match up to Open Sci-Ed. Great that it's free. The catch is that you have to purchase the materials to go along with Open Sci-Ed. So that's the stuff that we purchased that we're rolling out this year and we're rolling out the next couple of years. That's what we're doing. So that's the second component to why we're seeing this low scores. And the third one is, yes, it is a reading assessment. At the end of the day, if you were on that literacy assessment in a level 1 or 2, you're going to struggle with the science assessment because there's a lot of reading to it. So it's a combination of those 3 things. So what we encourage science teachers to do is kind of pick up the gauntlet from the English language arts teacher and teach some reading skills. You're going to do some informational texts. Reading science is also looking at graphs, looking at data, looking at lab reports. That's considered reading because it's going to pop up on the assessment. And I would often, when I was a building principal, I would often say to teachers, and sometimes middle school math teachers is like me when I said this, but everybody's a teacher of literacy. Everybody. Doesn't matter what assignment you have, everybody should be teaching something.
And similar to in the past, I guess 2 years ago, more than 2 years back, we started to weave social studies into DLA. DLA is woven into social studies. So it's the same idea and basically just carrying it through into science now.
Yes.
Okay, so that should help us. So that was one. And then just overall, in terms of how the staff looks at this information. So they get this for each student. The younger students, I understand because we're doing this small group instruction in the classroom, they have the same class, same students for a full year, less students. So it seems like that's an easier handle for them in terms of like carrying it out and really making sure each student, based on their test results, is getting that specific intervention, essentially. But when it comes to the older kids, so middle school up, how does that handle? Because they have so many students, are they really looking at each and every student, individual scores? And then it feels like, when the kids get into a classroom, they're taught a general lesson. So how is it, I know we mentioned the after-school tutorial programs, but the reality is a lot of kids probably may not go to the after-school tutorial programs. So how do we help those kids, in the upper grades, I guess?
Yeah, so the first part of your question, are teachers looking at individualized student data? Yes, the answer is yes. And there's a variety of avenues that teachers can look at data. So they can look at individual student scores. There's also a great report that teachers, administrators have access to that is a line plot graph that takes every single standard that's in a question on the math or language arts assessment. They put across, and then they drop points to see where our students scored on that standard. Then you can also compare against their peers. So you can see, for example, this is important, so algebra students. You can see that oftentimes in 3rd or 4th grade, because we teach algebra not as a course, algebra as a skill, you can see that our students are struggling for algebra type skill. So our teachers have access to what looking at it, and also look, which I think is probably more important, where we're landing in terms of assessment on the standards. So then the second part of your question, yeah, it does get more challenging. You get to the other grades because there's a lot of opportunities, there's a lot of different things, especially at high school. There's a lot of core softwares, there are a lot of environments in high school. So we're fortunate here, the middle school, with a 68-minute period that teachers have a big block of time. They can break that block of time into segments where they can teach a whole group lesson, and they can break for a single group, then they can do a hands-on activity, they can regroup whole group structure. So that's what you're doing. If you have an opportunity to teach them, one like that, there's a lot that you can do to read them. But yes, an absolutely a challenge.
First of all, thank you so much that you're promoting literacy across the district, because I know when someone in your position and it gets handed down through the administrators, it makes such a huge impact, because as an English teacher, I know we can't do it all. And when I've had years in my district when that's been pushed through, and all of the teachers each actually have it put down when, as part of their PEPs, it used to be that every one of them had to cover literacy. It makes such a difference when it's backed up and not just a suggestion. So I'm hoping that it's going to be pushed through fully, that everyone is responsible for that literacy piece. I just think we all have to say out loud that even as well as we're doing against the state, looking at only half of our students passing in English and even less passing in math is horrific. And I also was wondering, is any of the data broken out? Because this is statewide. What about communities of schools of our peers? Do we have any of that data to know that school districts that are similar to ours, where their data falls? Because we obviously know that tax dollars are aligned with success of schools. So is there any data that shows other schools like us how they're aligning with the standards?
Yes.
Do you have any sense of how we're doing against those?
So for a long time, New Jersey did district factor groups, and you got identified by a number of letters. They moved away from that, but yet the idea, we always kind of know where you're at in that factor group. So while they don't promote that particular data point anymore, you can still kind of figure it out. So where do we land in terms of our peer groups? Pretty close. English language arts, we're pretty close to where our peers are. Math, we're on the lower side. So when we dive that even more specifically to grade levels. So while we're common with our peer groups, our district factor groups of literacy, third grade math, we are struggling with third grade literacy, and that has to be the focus for us. And mathematics, I kind of put it down on that slide. For Algebra 1, we have to improve Algebra 1 as the worst. But the Algebra 1 skills that we teach in elementary and middle school absolutely needs improvement. So if we're comparing ourselves to other schools where we need to improve the bond, it's third grade literacy and it's Algebra 1.
The last piece is just anecdotal completely, but I'm just going to throw out there that when my child took the science test, the feedback was it covered so much science in 11th grade, and some of them they hadn't taken for 2-3 years. So our scores would improve if we had some kind of course, or not even course, but before the test, having some kind of review or something, because based on what track they've been on, I know we're doing it differently now, but the students we have who are moving up have been in this tracking system. So they could be in all different sciences. Some might actually be just starting to take a science that they're getting tested on or haven't taken it yet. So if there's some kind of review to help them out, we're losing out on the data, wrong word. We're missing out on the knowledge that they've gained, and they've just forgotten because they might not be science kids anymore. They might be excelling in other subjects and not taking them. So I would hope that we harness what they've learned and done so well on and just get some kind of reminder to prep them. Because we don't want to spend our days test prepping, because we know that's not what education is about. But in the end, we're all sitting looking at this data and going, ugh. So how do we take care of that?
Right, that's a good suggestion, right? To be able to kind of circle back on certain skills that you may see, address that.
Thank you so much.
I have a quick question. Do you think that the fact that we now have the state-funded pre-K, will that, I mean, it's years down the road, right? And we won't have a big chunk of time missing from being in school in there, hopefully, ever again. Well, do you think that will alleviate some of this? Like, we'll start getting things earlier. The literacy piece, I would think for sure, right?
Yes, so this is a question of probably how we have the exact grade level where students are at, but by this point, we're going to start to see if we don't only have them captured, we will be within a year. There'll be a percent of the board, probably a year or two, on this presentation, students who were in our pre-K cohort and traveled with us from age 3 to 4, compared to students several years ago, or even maybe in high school now, who weren't part of that program. We can look at that disparity. I would say, my expectation would be we're going to see a difference in a positive for students who live with us from pre-K. Mrs. President, I don't remember the grade what it is, though.
So, it would be our 4th grade that we're looking at that we had a majority of our students in preschool, 4th graders. And then what the pilot taking place at Ravina, Mr. Lina mentioned, with Schools of Mine, for kindergarten, that is directly aligned to the curriculum that we're using in preschool for when they're with us for K to 4. So it's going, this year is really, really important because that'll give us additional data in terms of if we need to make any changes with our kindergarten curriculum. The feedback from the kindergarten staff with the students that have come up now with our preschool expansion has been that that they're ready to learn and their vocabulary is there and self-regulation is there. Where, however, though our kindergarten curriculum that we currently use aside from the pilot wasn't aligned to the Schools of Mine. So they were still there, the kids are learning in preschool a lot of hands-on activities, so that science, that math, they use a lot of manipulative that you begin to see in first, second, and third grade. Kindergarten, we still need to harvest on the self-regulation component, because when kids are self-regulated earlier on, then their academic success is a lot better if they know how to manage their emotions, their behaviors, their relationships with kids, because then you're spending time on that, and then maybe not necessarily working on the fundamentals of literacy and math at an early age on. So that's why we decided to go with the pilot, which was free. That was a big plus for Ravine Drive. So we're really, really excited about what the work and the feedback that we're getting from that kindergarten group there. So we're excited about that. But yes, so they actually, so with preschool expansion, typically Rutgers, the program is near, it's a project that's out of Rutgers. Typically they'll do a longitudinal study on students or districts that have participated in preschool expansion. And what they'll look at is from all of those years. So I'd say probably within the next 2 years, we will probably be asked to participate in that cohort, and then we would provide the data in terms of where we started and then how our kids are performing. So there's a lot on that, where it covers the attendance, the discipline, the behaviors, but also the academic activities, so the whole child.
Can I just ask you a question? Thank you also.
Just real quick, and I know Ms. Prince just mentioned it, so the Tools of the Mind is a pilot. So that means obviously it's free for the year, then it turns into an expenditure that we purchase.
If we decide to continue with it, yes, we have a budget for it. There's a couple of opportunities. So we could budget for it locally, or we could, there's an opportunity, we discussed this last year with our county superintendent, where we could roll this into our PEA funds, which is preschool extension funds. So there is an opportunity in that particular grant where if you're doing something that's transitioning students from pre-K to K with approval, which we have, that we can put it into
Okay, that's even better. Okay.
That was our package.
Okay. All right, and then I know you said foundations were moving into 2. So I always bring this up, and for just years of being on the board, I'm always cognizant of asking about programs, purchasing, utilizing what we have, getting our money's worth and not to keep changing. So if we add foundations in 2, are we replacing something or?
That's a question I should have mentioned as we talked about that bullet. So we had foundations in the district pre-COVID, K1. So it's just a matter of reaching out to teachers and saying, go back into your supply box and find your manual. So really it was only a purchase of grade foundations in grade 2.
Okay.
then some refresher kits for K1. So it's not a reinvestment, it was a reinvestment. K1, 2, it was repurposing what we already had.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
not as expensive as a base.
All right, thank you so much. Maybe for the benefit of the public, maybe for just sharing myself, that the bringing together all of this presentation, one of the things that comes to mind with foundations especially is that the children that are now in third grade are the cohort that was in kindergarten for the 2020-2021 school year, which would have been when foundations couldn't happen because foundations is an in-person instruction.
Correct.
So it's good that we figured out that we need to go back to that. I was lucky that my son was just 1 year ahead of that, so I feel these things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Rose, can we go over the HIP self-assessment for the 22-23, 24 school year?
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Perez. Annually, the district is required to complete a self-assessment on HIV practices and procedures. Each of our 7 buildings completes a draft of the assessment. We tabulate the data and report the draft scores to the Department of Education. The results are published in late spring, early summer. The self-assessment is for the 23-24 school year. The purpose of the report tonight is to share with the board that the required steps and process are complete in the school and at the school and district levels, and we are ready to submit. I'll share back with the board and community later this year.
Thank you, Dr. Under the superintendent's report, I just want to conclude with some updates and highlights in our district. So on Monday, we had our PD day, which were filled with various learning activities for district staff housed at the high school, where everyone came together for either articulation or specific training in instructional programs, strategies, and curriculum and instruction. In addition to that, this year we partnered with Horizon Falls Blue Shield, where we offered some wellness sessions as well, where teachers were able to get their cholesterol checked, the flu shot, several. So it was really nice to see. So some of our staff were able to engage in that. We had yoga sessions, so it was well received. And we did send out a survey to gain feedback from our staff, so we can plan for future workshops. In addition to that, we had a fun-filled week with activities to recognize Week of Respect through each of our buildings. On October 24th, we had 2 events that are to take place this month. The Battle of the Classes will be housed at the high school, so staff and students are excited. The students, I think, are really excited to see the staff participate in and engage in some fun-filled activities there, so we'll see who's the winner. And then also on the 24th, we do have the Hall of Fame induction that will be held at the Gramercy. I will be participating and attending the event, so it's really nice. It's my first time attending, but I think it's really nice that we're honoring some alumni that have contributed to the school community and continue to do great work in the communities, in the workforce. On November 10th, I wanted to highlight the Keys, our Recovery High School is doing their 2nd annual walk that will be held at Oakdale Community College. The walk will help fund some additional activities taking place at the academy, where we're housing currently 13 students in from not only our district but also our surrounding districts in Monmouth County. Just a reminder that Halloween is a half day, so have fun, everyone in the community with their kiddos. So we're happy. That's a fun day to kind of see everybody dressed up this month. So it's going to be great. On October 28th, we will reveal the website. We're really excited, and we are welcoming feedback from our community members, our stakeholders, after opening the new website, and we will continue to, the next few months and throughout the year, we will continue to enhance the website with additional feedback statute. We're advocating for the approval on shared jurisdictions, meaning that Matawan Police, particularly because they have the one building, that they would be able to rotate their police officers in the other zones in our district that are technically Aberdeen. Unfortunately, the formal request was not approved by the state. I want to thank both towns, particularly the chiefs, because they've really spent a lot of time in this process, and we're really advocating to have a shared agreement between towns. However, that's kind of out of our hands and out of their hands right now. But when I met with the chiefs, they were told that we need to advocate for a change in statute. So that would require us advocating to our senators and the legislation, community members to have us make a change, or for them to make a change, I should say, in terms of statute, to consider that not for every single town, but for unique towns like ours where we have shared services and we are serving 4,000 students together. And where we have buildings that we have our students where they're going to be combined and they're going to be housed all in one house. So I ask that our community members, board members, continue to advocate for that. In the meantime, we do have plans in place in terms of how to have SLEOs and that security presence from our police force in our buildings, and we are waiting to have some ongoing dialogue within the next few weeks with them. But we still are anticipating we want the change for January in terms of having presence. So we have those options available. But again, I want to thank them because I know they were very, very disappointed that it was not a test. Lastly, I want to acknowledge Vice President Mrs. Foley, who will be participating in a panel discussion for the NJASA Women's Leadership at the New Jersey School Board Conference next week. She has the opportunity to share her experiences as a board member and her leadership role, the perspectives serving as a leader, and just the experiences. So she's going to be with an additional 5 additional panelists. So it should be talking about leadership on the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a very quick board presence report along with congratulating Mrs. Foley on getting to be in that panel. I'm excited. I can't wait to see it. So I just wanted to share that I once saw a meme that said, my monthly goal for October is to make it through October. And it's a very busy month. It's not a bad month, it's just a really busy month. And so wanted to share that we have board members attending lots of things over the next week and a half. Tomorrow is the Latin American Association Banquet Celebration, which honors Latino students in Monmouth County schools. I'll be there, and a lot of our administration will be there. Next week is New Jersey School Board's annual workshop, and that's a multi-day professional development event for board members, and all of us will be there at one point or another, not the entire time, but we will be there. And then next Thursday, is the Matawan High School Hall of Fame, which Ms. Martinez will be at. I don't know if any other board members were planning to attend that one, but the same night is the Matawan Aberdeen Education Foundation's Battle of the Facilities, which many of us will be at, and Ms. Sproul and Ms. Warnicke are going to be guest judges. So that's exciting. Yeah. No brags. And then heads up to the board members that volunteered to be on CUSAC committees. We're going to be meeting in the interim between this meeting and the meeting in November, so that we will see the reports and discuss them, and then the board as a whole will be approving those reports in November. Did I get that right? Yes. Okay, great. So yeah, there's a lot going on, and Halloween. So, thanks. So we'll move on to the student representatives report. She's been so patient. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Even though the schools have day on Halloween, they're still doing their parades. Yes, they normally do, right? Thank
Good evening. As we reach the midway point in October, I can definitely say this month has been fun-filled and eventful for students. Across the district, we acknowledge the Week of Respect, October 7th through 11th. At the high school, students were encouraged by civic leaders to write positive messages during their lunch periods and to participate in various spirit days like wearing blue for anti-bullying. We also had an assembly held by Preferred Behavioral Health and Compass. We previously mentioned the Battle of Faculties on October 24th. This event is being organized by the Matawan Aberdeen Educational Foundation and will take place at the high school at 6 p.m. Each team of staff members hopes to see strong support from their school. I would also like to acknowledge the return of the Most Mentor Our Students Together program that was also previously mentioned. Students in grades 2 to 12 will have the opportunity to work with staff, dedicated community members, and high school students for tutoring and mentoring services. Most will be held on Tuesday and Wednesday afternoons from 3 to 6 p.m. in the middle school cafeteria. Coming up, the High School Student Council will be hosting their fall fundraiser on Saturday, October 26th from 5 to 10 p.m. at the high school. This event is open to all students and families in the community with an exciting haunted hallway and other fall festivities. Tickets will be on sale for $10 at the door. We hope to see you there. We also look forward to our homecoming pep rally and football game tomorrow the 18th and to Red Ribbon Week for drug and alcohol awareness toward the end of this month, October 25th through the 31st. Lastly, for the high school, the Hall of Fame dinner will be held October 24th at the Gramercy Lakeside from 6 to 10 p.m. As for Ravine Drive, October has been a blast. Right after their fall festival on the last Saturday of September, they were able to award their first Remarkable Road Runners, who all received a book from Inchy, the book vending machine, as a reward. Students have been enjoying their completed outdoor classroom with the addition of 5 tables. Ravine's kindergarten students and teachers have completed the first round of filming for their launch of Tools of the Mind. Ravine hopes to see everyone at their MJ's night on October 22nd and their costume parade on Halloween. Lloyd Road is excited to share information about upcoming events and activities for students. On Tuesday, October 22nd, all 4th grade students will participate in a half-day team building and character education program made possible through a grant from the Matawan Aberdeen Educational Foundation. This program is designed to capitalize on the advantages of teamwork. Each session will enhance the skills of students as well as the rapport between students and staff. The activities are focusing on resiliency, the development of positive community values, self-confidence, communication skills, positive leadership, stress management, problem solving, and teamwork. On Wednesday, October 23rd, all 4th and 5th grade students will participate in a special program focused on fire safety. The Aberdeen Fire Company will be visiting Lloyd Road, providing students an opportunity to learn about firefighters, explore the trucks, and learn important information. Lloyd Road students and staff welcomed therapy dogs back into their school this past week. Students and staff welcomed back Sadie, a black lab mix, Lucy, a Bernedoodle, and Zara. They look forward to welcoming more 4-legged furry friends throughout the year. Lloyd Road is excited to announce their 2nd annual Diverse Learners Day, which will take place on Friday, November 1st for all 4th grade students. Diverse Learners Day is designed to both celebrate and educate students. The day will focus on providing insight and understanding into the many wonderful ways people learn and the different tools, equipment, and strategies people use to find success. The goal of Diverse Learners Day is to foster a greater awareness, understanding, and appreciation for diverse learners. Throughout the day, all 4th graders will rotate through 5 disability awareness rooms, including vision, speech and hearing, physical disabilities, learning disabilities, and developmental disabilities. I'm also a part of civic leadership, and we're going to Lloyd Road that day to help lead the stations. I didn't write that down. They will engage in interactive activities designed to give students a sense of what it's like to have a disability and how having a disability impacts various facets of everyday life. It was also a busy start to October at Strathmore. The students enjoyed the fall book fair thanks to the PTO, and a special thank you also goes out to the Aberdeen Fire Department for recently visiting with the fire truck to talk with the students. October has also been an exciting month at Cliffwood Elementary. Their successful fundraiser at Texas Roadhouse brought together students and families for a great time outside of school. They're looking forward to their trunk or treat event on Friday, October 25th at 4:30, which promises to be a fun evening for all. Kindergarten students also enjoyed a walking trip to the Cliffwood Firehouse. Additionally, Cliffwood recently held a Title I meeting where they selected this year's book title and began planning family nights focused on math and STEAM. Finally, MAMS has some great activities coming up. Homework help will begin on Monday, which allows for up to 60 students to get after-school help with homework from MAMS teachers. And selected MAMS students have a meeting tomorrow morning with the food service company Mashios. Students will share feedback about breakfast, lunch, and snack foods and try new meal offerings. Assemblies are planned for next week at MAMS on October 23rd, 24th, and 25th. At these assemblies, students will learn about the importance of making good choices and the dangers of vaping. This brings me to the end of my report. Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Rivera. Can you repeat the date for the haunted hallway and time, please?
Yes, that was the high school one, right?
Yes.
Saturday, October 26th. It's 5 to 10 p.m. I heard, though, if it's slowing down, they might wrap it up a little sooner than that. But if it's little kids, but
Thank you so much.